Good morning, bagels and baguettes. Welcome back to another one of Chuck's Tech Debacles. So, it is actually Labor Day, and I'm off from work today. So what am I doing? I'm working at home, because Labor Day. So, I've got stuff, because I'm building computers for my parents, actually. This technically was supposed to be Mother's Day and Father's Day presents, and now it's Labor Day, and at the rate I'm going, it might be Christmas. But, we're putting them together today. What we've got is a ASRock Desk Mini X300. This is very similar to the box that I'm using for my media PC, which is an A300. It is a small form factor case that takes a AMD Ryzen series processor. It takes one of the G series ones, so it has the onboard graphics, because you are not fitting a video card in this case. So on top of that, I've got some SSDs for that high-speed goodness. I've got some regular spinny platter hard disks for backup space. We've got some RAM. These take the SO-DIMM laptop style RAM. So we've got some Crucial Ballistix 3200 megahertz DDR4 C16 kits. So each one of these boxes will have 16 gigs of RAM. And we got Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut. Good thermal paste. Always get the good stuff. First off here, let's open one of these things. All right, pop this open. We got the quick instructions. CD with instructions, or with drivers, I mean. And this is what I mean by you are not fitting a graphics card in this case. I think I've had books bigger than this. So next up, cardboard. We've got, so this case does come with a low profile cooler, which will probably work for most cases because you're not really going to be overclocking anything, or you shouldn't be overclocking anything in a case this small. It's got very low power overhead, so for the most part that's probably going to work, but I'm going to try and use the bigger cooler that comes with the CPU. It's nice to know that's an option though. So what else we got here? We got case feet, that's good. SATA adapters. These will be used to plug the hard drives into the case. We'll get to those. I'm going to set those out. I'm going to need those later. Wi-Fi, antennas and cables. Next up, we've got a power brick. Oh, that's an M.2 screw. Don't lose those. Power brick. And wall plug, which I don't need the wall plug because I've got one set up here. Oh, that's the Mickey Mouse plug. Got to change it. All right, so now I got the cable plugged in. So let's go over the case bit here. Ventilated top, ventilated side, feet on the other side, and there's a VESA mount on the back, which that's an optional extra. You have to buy that off Amazon or something. On the front, you've got a power button, a 3.5 headphone jack, a 3.5 microphone jack, USB Type A, that one's blue, so it's either 3.1 or 3.2, I think it's 3.1, and USB Type C. So at a minimum, you've got a 10 gigabit and a 5 gigabit USB on the front. Now, one thing about the top here is these two little removable ports. Those go to these. These are an optional extra. Again, you have to buy it off Amazon or from wherever you're buying these. Excuse me while I tear stuff open. Screws. This is a 2-port USB adapter. USB 2.0 plugs directly into the motherboard, and then this screws into the case from the inside, so that gives you 2 additional USB ports for keyboard, mouse, headphones, that sort of thing. Let's actually get to cracking this thing open here. So on the back, you got your back inputs. You got your DC input, which is for your cable. You've got onboard DisplayPort and HDMI. It does not say right off whether that's USB 2.0 or 2.1. Hazard a guess, it's probably 2.0. It also has the RGB port on here for anybody that still uses monitors with RGB cables. Anyway, you've got a USB 2 and a USB 3 port on the back and gigabit networking. So all the good stuff that you need. We are gonna unscrew the back here. Let's take your standard tiny computer case Phillips head, and then this should just slide out. I say should. There we go. Grab that little tab and pull, and they will separate. So let me flip cameras real quick. Alright, so we are looking at the inside of the board here. Obviously you've got this case which is wired to your front panel connectors, which you can't see in there because it's way too dark. You've got your CPU socket, RAM sockets. There's our USB pins for the front panels here. There's our M.2 Wi-Fi, so that is in our container here, or our bag. We will pop that in a minute. There's our regular USB that goes with that. If you feel like prying the board off of this little tray, there is an M.2 on the back here somewhere. And then right through here are your little SATA adapters. So you'll plug that in, mount your platter drive in here, and then screw that in. So let's go back to the main camera. Speaking of what we were just talking about, I'm going to go ahead and pop out one of these little adapter cables and figure out how we're going to mount these. So that hooks in on one side and then screws in on the other. That's easy enough. Maybe you got to push that down in there a little bit. It's a little, there it goes. Damn, I'm not even sure you'd need to screw that in. That's kind of tight. All right, these ports are listed SATA 1 and SATA 0, so this should just snap in. Should being the operative word. Oh yeah, easy enough. All right, so I just did a little loop around this hook here, and that is just the right length to plug that in. I am not going to plug that in just yet. Turn this back over. I have found that when installing Windows, either to a RAID or to a M.2 device, sometimes Windows, if it sees a SATA hard drive plugged in, it will just, even if it installs the operating system to the M.2 device, it will install boot files to that regular SATA hard drive. And if that SATA hard drive ever goes down for some reason, now your Windows install doesn't work, and that's a pain to fix. So I'm going to install Windows on it first, and then plug the drive in so that it recognizes correctly. As I'm working through here, first off I'm going to need a cleaning cloth and some rubbing alcohol in a minute. But I've opened the CPU. For this one, I've got the Ryzen 4350 Pro. So that's 4 cores, 8 threads, and onboard Ryzen graphics, which you can buy here in Korea. You don't have to buy it as part of an OEM kit. That's easy enough. We are going to open that latch, find our little triangle, and lock her down. See, that part's easy. This comes with a low profile cooler, which at a rough guesstimation looks like it's going to fit in this case. I just have to remove these brackets real quick and remove this pre-applied thermal paste. Get a standard Phillips screwdriver. Set that to the side and repeat. All right. So currently I'm using a baby wipe. We use these to clean the dog's feet when they come in from outside because they're relatively tough. They've got a fibrous consistency to them, but they also have pretty much like nothing but water on them. So you won't be getting anything weird on your heat sink. You do have to dry it off though. But the rubbing alcohol that I'm going to use to make sure that it gets everything off. So once you wipe it with just the wet wipe, you go back behind it and wipe it with some alcohol or some acetone. If you've actually can get your hands on denatured electronics alcohol, that's the best. But standard isopropyl alcohol will work just fine. Try to eyeball it, make sure you don't leave any fibers on it. And as soon as this dries up, we'll be right back. All right, so I've got this cleaned up. I'm letting it dry for a few seconds. So I'm going to set that to the side. So it occurred to me it might actually be beneficial to run some of this stuff before I start jamming everything else in. So, Crucial Ballistix. It's a 2x8 kit. There we go. So that should give us 16 gigabits, which should be more than enough for watching YouTube videos or Facebooking or playing games or most standard stuff. Honestly, unless you're editing video or doing like 3D rendering, 16 gigs is probably more than enough. Alright, let's get this Wi-Fi. So there's the wires. There's a sticker that you can put on your case in case you're like actually reselling these for something. saying what model of Wi-Fi it's got. Your two antennas, and even some instructions on where to put it. This one will go into the M.2 Wi-Fi module. There is a little cap on that screw hole for some reason. So we will snap that in. Did they not include a screw for that? I mean, there's the washers and adapters for the cables. Well, hopefully the M.2 drive comes with a screw. Otherwise, I'm going to have to find an M.2 screw. I still think these M.2 screws are somehow designed to be the most easily lost screws in existence. There we go. So that is in. Now, if you can see on the side of the case here, there are 3 little punch holes that you can knock out. It recommends doing the 2 on the outside. Helpful if you got a pair of needle nose. Once you punch them loose, you can wiggle them back and forth a lot easier. Alright, so these, it's a little hard to see, but you can feel it if you're running your fingers on it. There's a flat side on that, and that flat side is going to go down, and that will slide right through like that. Anyway, once you get that side through, you got the little crush washer, you put that on, and then a little bolt. And you should be able to hand tighten this. Again, if you've got a pair of needle nose, it'll make it easier. This isn't something that you need to super torque down. You may need to remove it at some point, but it'll make it where it doesn't wobble. I mean, ideally, in a best case scenario, once you attach your antenna to it and set your computer up, it's not moving again, but perfect only exists in theory, which is a town that I have yet to find on a map. So then these connect to these 2 little nipple ports. Sometimes they will be labeled like gray and black, and the cables will be color-coded, but this one does not seem to be. So I'm going to see if I can sneak these 2 cables through here, which may not be the best thing in the world for reception, but it's better for cable management. Get on there. Ah, there we go. Some people may tell you that it's easier to get these little nipple sockets on while the card is off the board. That may be true. This is the problem with small form factor cases, is my hands are literally bigger than this board. Even the needle nose are too big to fit in here. Ah, there we go. Okay, so I've got those tucked in here, and hopefully that's heatsink will drop right over that. So before the heatsink, let's get a little thermal paste on here. I think my thermal paste is starting to dry out there a little. Alright, where is our... Good question. Where is the fan power? CPU fan. There we go. Okay, good. We didn't pinch the Wi-Fi cable. This should sneak around here. So I need to pop these out. Careful not to cut yourself. These are in odd spots, so you're gonna have to wiggle them back and forth. You can't get the needle nose in there. See what labeled USB 2 cable screws. Alright, these 2 screws you will want to snug up, because these 2 screws are the only things holding this thing in the right direction for when you plug your USB in. Alright, and that will plug in right there. Oh no! Alright, I think you can take the shroud off. Okay, so I had to figure it out for a minute. The AMD shroud here, the top where it says AMD, there's a little thumb thing in there. You can get under there and pull and lift, and it'll start unsnapping, and then you just move around the sides, which is a little difficult because now I've got all the RAM installed and everything. There we go. That will take the outer shroud off. Now, maybe. And that should, with a little wiggling. No! Crap. Okay, so these clips from the fan shroud are bumping into one of the screw hole mounts. So let me find something to trim those with. All right, so I found a pair of gardening snips, which are enough to shear through the plastic there. It's a good thing I didn't have to go find and charge the Dremel, because while it would have made quick work of it, it would also make a mess. I'd have plastic shavings everywhere. Like I was saying, with a little bit of wiggling, that fits. The fan's right inside there. Okay, so it's going to take a little fine tuning for the cable management, because these cables are all bunched up in here. But that gets us to a fairly working stage. Let me pull this off real quick. I think if I roll that cable that way, well, no, I need them to go that way, but I need them to go up. If you're working on your computers and you do not have any tiny black zip ties, you are wrong in life. So what we're going to do here on the inside, so as to minimize unsightliness, we're going to run that up and then back in this way. And what we're going to do, although I can't get a camera on this, is we're going to pull the cables for those USB 2 ports up this way. Oh, this is hard to do. All right, I think best bet on this one is going to be to pre-start your zip tie, because that's easier to do when you're not trying to wrap it around something at the same time. And then leave the big loop at the bottom. And then I'm going to run this USB 2 cable through it that way. It unzipped itself. Fraggle Rock. All right. Actually, with 2 hands in here, I think I got it. All right. I think we are about good there. Make sure that's cinched good and tight. And that's going to give us a little less room, but we can still plug it in before we slide everything in. Yeah, we can get to that. So now we're going to move on to the SSD. Now, I do have to admit, I did not read super carefully when I bought these. When I bought these, I thought these were the Samsung SSD 980 Pros. These are just the Samsung SSD 980s, which is not a huge difference for your normal user, but these are DRAM-less SSDs, so they use, if I remember correctly, onboard NVRAM in SLC format for a buffer, but only for a certain amount. So if you're moving a lot of large files, you'll run out of buffer space quickly. For what my parents use these for, should be no problem. And there is no M.2 screw in here. Fraggle Rock. Haha. So I had bought some of these. Does this have it? No. Fraggle Rock. Well, that being said, I bought a M.2 heatsink to go on this because reasons. This is just some no-name one off Amazon that I bought. Comes with a little aluminum heat spreader and a thermal pad. I'm pretty sure you can see where this is going. Peel and stick. And then peel. Try not to get air bubbles in your, there we go, in your thermal pad there. And stick. There we go, make sure you got good contact at all the high points, because that's going to be your chips. And then they give you these little thick boy rubber bands to hold it in place. All right, and then that will seat right into that M.2 slot. And now I have to go find another screw. Okay, so I'm going to give a shout out to this generic brand heatsink company that I've been buying these little things from on Amazon. It's called Heatsinks. Very probably Chinese company. But while they didn't have any in this one of the other kits I bought from them was a 2-piece. It closes on both sides of an M.2 drive. And that one came with multiple M.2 screws in it because it uses the same size screw for the case as well as to bolt it down. So props to them for including something with multiple M.2 screws. All right, now we'll pop this in. All right, let's get some of this out of my way here. All right, so that gives us CPU, power, memory, and disk. We should be ready to cook. So I'm going to jump to the screen capture. All right, so welcome to me capturing Screen stuff. I've got this little external AverMedia, like a 4K gamer thing, plugs in through a USB port, but it only has one input, which is why I didn't use it on my other machine. I got a card for that one that had two inputs, but works fine for what I'm doing here with my laptop. So let's see what we got here. So this is on the 1.4. So first thing we are going to do, update. And that is the 1.7 firmware update I have on a thumb drive that's plugged in. So we're going to update to that. Alright, so that has finished. Now we're going to reboot. Alright, we've booted back up into the screen here. Ooh, looks like we got a slightly different view here. Alright, so we see the Ryzen 3 Pro 4350 with Radeon graphics. Base speed is 3.8, 16 gigs of RAM, which is running at default at the moment. So let's go through here and set some settings. Alright, let's see here. First thing I want to set is RAM. There's my RAM. I need to move my face, hold on. Alright, that makes it a bit easier to read the screen. DRAM information, load XMP settings. Always save changes and exit. Alright, now we're back up. We've got our RAM running at 3200 megahertz, which is right. So that's good. I'm not going to bother with the OC tweaker. We want this to run at stock voltages. This is the good thing about making computers for normal people. You just let it run at stock. You let the overboost handle most of it. You make sure it's got enough cooling and enough hard drive and memory, and you let it go. Makes things much less dramatic. When you're working on your own machine and you're a computer nerd, you start trying to overclock stuff. You're trying to set settings outside of the normal auto parameters, and sometimes it goes really well, sometimes it goes really badly. This should hopefully be less of a catastrophe. So we're leaving that the same. Yep. Now you could go in and change the clock frequency on these APUs. I've heard they're good to, I think the stock setting is somewhere around like 12 or 1300 megahertz. But I think that they work with enough cooling up to 1500 or 1700 depending on the generation. I think the 5000s you can get them up to about 1700. I think the 4000s is 1600. But this one's for my mother, and she generally uses it to do email and use Facebook, that sort of thing, so stock is good. Less drama. Voltages, leave those stock. Alright. Where is the setting for... UMA frame buffer. That's the one I want. Let me give her 2 gigs. That is 2 gigabytes of RAM dedicated to the video card for video processing, which is more than enough for watching videos, watching movies, standard screen stuff, even playing like low-level games. 2 gigs, you can play games at 720 with no problem. Alright, so that should be good there. So now, dun dun dun, I'm going to dig out my boot disk here, and we're just going to load some Windows. And good, it booted up and found the USB stick, so we're off and running with a Windows install. Let's see. This is the wrong disk. What? Hold on. Hopefully this is the right thumb drive this time. Alright, yeah, this is the Activate Windows one. We're going to skip that for now. 1 tibble-bit of M.2 storage. And we'll be back. Alright, so it has downloaded the Windows files. It has rebooted and shot through the getting ready stages. So we should now be getting ready for it to load into Windows. Yay! Set up. Okay, so we skipped through all that security stuff because nobody needs to know all that. Privacy settings. Don't need any of this. Don't like none of that. No. I know it's impossible, but I prefer that they stay as much out of my business as possible. So I will see you guys at the desktop. Alright, so I'm at the desktop. I've gone ahead and installed Chrome because screw Edge. And one of the first things I've done, because this uses an AMD chipset and AMD graphics, is I've gone to the AMD website and I'm going to download the auto detect and install utility. Because I'm not exactly sure what version of the board this is. It could be an A320, but it could be some oddball thing, and we will let it do its thing here. Also, since I don't have the graphics driver yet, it's got me stuck at like 1280 by 720 or something, or 1024 by 768. One of those oddball old resolutions for small monitors, you know, from back in the day. Wow, that's really small. Ah, that was weird. Well, let's go. What is with these tiny windows? I literally can't even read that. Ryzen something. It should be the motherboard drivers. Install. Alright, I've moved my face again, so that I have hopefully a little more screen space to work with here. We have installed the AMD drivers. So if we take a quick look at the device manager, under display we should find, yep, Radeon graphics, and under system devices maybe? Yeah, AMD controllers. That looks good. Let's make sure we've got... Well, that went straight to 4K. We don't need that though. Let's do 1920 by 1080. There we go. Alright. Tell you what, now the next most important thing to do is Windows updates. Check for updates. And there's a ton of them. So, we're going to download these updates, and then we will be back because nobody wants to watch this boring crap. I'm back around here. You guys can't see it from this point of view, but I've kind of gone backwards. I got Windows installed. I started doing the Windows updates, got all that done. Then I went back into the case to plug in the little laptop hard drive, and I can't get it to detect. At this point, I've tried both of these little cables that come with it. I've tried 2 different hard drives. In the BIOS here, it just does not show as detected. The drive's got power, I can feel it spinning, so that's good. It's just not communicating data. So, here's the first debacle. Apparently this one isn't going to be able to have the additional hard drive in it. Shouldn't be a problem. A terabyte worth of space ought to be more than enough for what Mom uses her computer for. It just irritates me when stuff that should work doesn't. On my media PC, which is an A300, which is an older model, plug, work. Right out of the gate. No problem. This one, I don't know if it's a problem with both of the cables or if it's a problem with both of the ports on the board. But there's my problem for this one. Not too big of a problem. She's got a terabyte worth of space on the M.2, and she's got USB ports so she can plug an external hard drive in if she needs just mass storage. Guess we're going to have to go with that. Anyway, let me finish getting this button back up, and then we'll see if I can move on or not. Alright everybody, so that is this one done. So, that's definitely a little computer there. So we got the power brick and everything. So, I get to put this back in the box, because when I'm done with these, I get to mail them to my parents. So, that's the mom's PC done. So, next time I'll get back, we'll open the other one. That one will be a lot quicker because I'm not going to show you all the hardware stuff because it's going to be exactly the same as this one. We'll just get to the OS and see what I do different on that one. Like, subscribe, do the internet stuff. We'll be back next time.